why would you go to a conference? Some people get opportunities to go to conferences early as a grad student, hopefully as a grad student. But other people may not get as many opportunities early on and might really only start going or at least giving talks by the time they're a postdoc. So obviously, one major reason to go to a conference is to share your work and share your results. But to me, the most important part of that is to get feedback. So you can share your work or your results by submitting a paper or getting a paper published, right? But to get that, one-on-one, face-to-face feedback from either people who don't know your work and therefore are learning how to understand and allowing you to kind of practice communicating what you're doing is really important, and also getting feedback from some of the experts in the field directly can be really valuable. Of course, when you go to a conference, it allows you to place your work in the context of your field, meaning really understanding where your research fits within the broader field that you're in, which is really valuable. A lot of times the latest updates in your field are going to come out in a conference before they come out in a paper. As you, even as a grad student, but as an early career researcher, hopefully, you're establishing collaborations. A conference is a great way to get face-to-face time with collaborators or meet new collaborators. Many people use conferences to network or find a job, so I'll talk a little bit about that too. And then another reason you might go to a conference is to really learn about a new field. Sometimes people stay in their, kind of chosen field or subspecialty their entire life, and sometimes people move around. And sometimes going to a conference can be a really great way to get, kind of jump in 2 feet first for a new area and learn about it really directly. So there's obviously a number of types of conferences that you can attend. There's the kind of major core conferences in your field that everybody might go to, every year or every 2 to 3 years. Those, can be important. Sometimes there's newly established meetings that are worth going and worth helping to grow. Those types of meetings can be helpful for, if you want to start being on committees or helping to run sessions, things like that. Kind of getting in from the ground up in newly established meetings can be a great way to start participating at that higher level. There's meetings of different sizes and formats, and sometimes you might really want to go to a small meeting where you're going to meet a lot of people and really get a lot of feedback. And sometimes, you may want to go to something like, American Chemical Society or another APS, large meetings where your presentation is going to be one of thousands, but you're going to get a broader feel of what's going on. And then again, there's meetings in fields that are new to you. And then there's also more kind of maybe less research-based and more development-based, methods development-based types of meetings are sometimes held for certain types of instrumentation. And some meetings in near your field might be more focused on industry and application. And so you might consider, if you're very academic-based, consider kind of looking around and seeing if there are other places where your work might be of interest to new audiences. Okay, so the first thing you do after you decide what conference you want to go to, of course, is you submit an abstract. So this is presuming that you're actually attempting to present something and not just going to be on the listening side only. Of course, the goal of the abstract is twofold. The first goal is to just get your work accepted to the meeting. And then the second goal is to get people to actually come to your presentation once you're at the meeting. So you want to write an abstract that's going to get the attention of the reviewers who are reviewing the abstracts and accepting them. And then you want also to get the attention of the general audience that's going to be coming to the meeting itself. So in my view, always communicating your scientific results is similar to telling a story. You want to make sure that you have a logical flow from the beginning to the middle to the end of your story. And ideally, at the end of your story will loop back to what you were trying to talk about in the beginning to have to really come full circle. So you want to have your logical flow. You need to be clear and concise. In an abstract, you probably are going to have a word or character limit, so you're going to be forced to be concise. And you want to make sure you're choosing your words carefully so that everything that's in there is what you want to say and not just filler. And the really critical thing to do very early on in the abstract is to explain the so what. So you want to, you know, capture the reader's attention by hooking them in with the why are you doing what you're doing, and why should they care about what you're doing. So, and try to keep the reader interested. Abstracts are short, but the attendees are going to be reading a lot of them. So so you want to hook them in pretty quickly. I have a really general formula that I follow for communicating my science pretty much in all formats, and how much detail goes into the formula just depends on how much time I have. So the first is the big picture goal. You know, X is of interest because Y. So you know, we care about renewable energy because petroleum reserves are running low, or, you know, cancer is important because it drastically affects, you know, people's livelihood, etc. Something, and how big picture that is really depends on your audience. If you're talking to someone totally outside of your field, this will be very, you know, high level and generic. If you're at a very specialized conference, this is going to be a lot tighter and a lot more sophisticated relative to your field of expertise. But this is the so what, you know, what are you studying and why? Then the next piece is, what's the challenge? You know, what are the barriers that are keeping people from achieving that big picture goal? And then the next piece is your actual goal. What are you actually researching or working on? What's the smaller goal that's focused on one or more of these challenges? And then the rest is pretty obvious, that the approach, you know, how are you achieving your project goal? What results do you have or expect to have by the time the conference begins? And then what are the conclusions or future directions? And the results and conclusions piece of an abstract is going to vary depending on what story you're trying to tell and how far into it you are. You know, if you're presenting work that you've already published or just published or expect to publish, you may have all the pieces of this right down to, you know, the final perfect conclusion. If you're presenting a poster on something you're just getting started, you may not have all of the results yet, and that's okay. You just have to, you know, but these are the kind of core components, and the balance of those, the ratios or balances of those components will vary a little depending on your particular situation. So after you get your abstract accepted and they've asked you to come and attend the conference, and you're either presenting a poster or you're presenting an oral talk, there's a number of things you can do to prepare for the conference in addition to actually making the presentation and practicing it. So one of the core things that you can do in advance is read like crazy. Read the papers that are out there. Do your very best to understand the field. Do your best, and if this is a field you've been in for a long time, since you were a baby scientist as a grad student, you may have a very good feel for the history of the field. If you're coming in and you're relatively new to the field or the subfield, this may take a little more effort, but I think you'll find it worth your while. So, you know, it's worth really trying to understand the history of the field. Who are the major players in the field? Are they still in the field? Are they retired, etc.? What were some of the major old challenges and new challenges that are in the field, and what are some of the key breakthroughs associated with getting through some of those? You know, you may not be able to, especially if it's a very old, large, long-standing field, know everything about the field, and that's fine. But this is just something to aspire to, and then at a minimum, reading, you know, the kind of highest impact papers and some of the seminal review papers will really help you feel settled in to the field. And that's important because, one, when you present your work, if you can frame it in the context of the rest of the effort in the field, that's going to help you. It's going to show that you know where your work sits within the field. It's going to help with answering questions from the audience. It's going to also increase your confidence in asking questions of others, particularly long-standing experts in the field. You know, if you're trying to connect with people who are really senior in the field, having that extra boost of confidence can be helpful. And also, you know, if there's just a couple people talking at the breakfast table or talking at, you know, a happy hour during the poster session, it can help you feel better about participating in those types of discussions.